Picture this. In just 95 years, a small mountain tribe built the largest empire in the Americas, stretching from Colombia to Chile, an empire that controlled over 10 million people without wheels, written language, or iron tools. Yet in a single afternoon in 1532, it all came crashing down when 168 Spanish conquistadors captured an emperor and shattered a civilization that had seemed invincible. This is the story of the Inca Empire, a tale so dramatic it reads like fiction. But every word is carved in stone across the Andes. What you're about to discover will challenge everything you think you know about ancient civilizations. We'll uncover how the Incas built roads that put Roman engineering to shame, performed brain surgery with a 90% success rate, and created a society so efficient that famine was virtually eliminated. But we'll also reveal the fatal flaws that made their spectacular collapse not just possible, but inevitable. This is the rise and fall of Tahuantinsuyu, the empire that time forgot, but history will never forgive. Behind every stone block in Machu Picchu lies a human story of triumph and tragedy. Meet Mama Oclo, a young woman who watched Spanish soldiers burn her sacred temple and melt down golden statues of her gods to fund European wars. Picture Huascar, the rightful heir to the throne, who died in chains while his half-brother Atahualpa fought a civil war that would leave their empire bleeding and vulnerable. These weren't just historical figures. They were real people with families, dreams, and fears, caught in the crossfire of civilizations colliding. The human cost of the Inca collapse was staggering. Within a century, the indigenous population plummeted from 10 million to just 1 million due to disease, warfare, and forced labor. Yet this is also a story of incredible human resilience. Inca architects who built earthquake-proof cities, engineers who carved terraces into impossible mountainsides, and healers who performed successful skull surgeries using bronze tools. Their descendants still speak Quechua today, still weave textiles using techniques passed down through 500 years of oppression, proving that while empires fall, human spirit endures. The year was 1200 CE, and the Andes Mountains were a patchwork of warring tribes, each fighting for control of fertile valleys and trade routes. In the small city-state of Cusco, a leader named Manco Capac established what would become the most unlikely empire in human history. According to Inca oral tradition, he was the son of Inti, the sun god, sent to bring order to a chaotic world. But the archaeological evidence tells a different story, one of strategic marriages, brutal conquests, and political genius that would make Machiavelli jealous. For the first 2 centuries, the Incas were just another highland tribe, controlling barely 25 miles around Cusco. The real transformation began in 1438, when a young prince named Cusi Yupanqui faced an impossible situation. The powerful Chanca Confederation was marching on Cusco with overwhelming force. His father, Inca Viracocha, fled the capital in terror. But Cusi Yupanqui stayed, rallied the defenders, and achieved a victory so decisive that it changed the course of South American history. He took the name Pachacuti, Earthshaker, and began the expansion that would create an empire. Pachacuti's revolution wasn't just military, it was administrative genius. He divided the empire into 4 regions called suyus, created a decimal-based hierarchy that organized millions of subjects, and established the mitad system of labor taxation that built roads, temples, and cities at unprecedented speed. By 1471, when he passed power to his son Tupac Inca Yupanqui, the Inca Empire stretched from Ecuador to northern Chile. But this was just the beginning of their meteoric rise to continental dominance. Under Tupac Inca Yupanqui's reign from 1471 to 1493, The empire exploded across South America like wildfire. His armies conquered the wealthy Chimu kingdom on Peru's northern coast, absorbing their advanced metallurgy and irrigation systems. They pushed south into modern-day Bolivia, securing control of vast silver deposits that would later fuel Spanish colonial wealth. Most remarkably, Tupac Inca launched naval expeditions into the Pacific, possibly reaching Polynesian islands, a feat that challenges our understanding of pre-Columbian maritime capabilities. The empire reached its zenith under Huayna Capac, who ruled from 1493 to 1525. His reign coincided with Columbus's voyages, though neither civilization knew of the other's existence. Huayna Capac pushed the northern frontier into Colombia and southern Ecuador, establishing Quito as a second capital. The empire now controlled 2,500 miles of coastline and mountain ranges, connected by 25,000 miles of roads that rivaled Rome's infrastructure. At its peak, Tahuantinsuyu governed 12 million people speaking over 100 languages, a logistical nightmare that the Incas managed with mathematical precision. But success bred the seeds of destruction. Huayna Capac's decision to divide the empire between his sons Huáscar and Atahualpa created a succession crisis that would prove fatal. When smallpox, brought by Spanish expeditions along the Caribbean coast, reached the Andes around 1524, it killed Huayna Capac and thousands of nobles, leaving a power vacuum. The civil war that followed between the half-brothers lasted from 1529 to 1532, devastating the empire's military and administrative structure just as Francisco Pizarro was planning his invasion from Panama. The timing of Pizarro's arrival in 1532 was catastrophically perfect. Atahualpa had just defeated Huáscar's forces at the Battle of Chimborazo, but his army was exhausted and scattered across the empire. The Inca road system, designed to move troops and information rapidly, now worked against them. Spanish horses could cover distances in days that took Inca runners weeks. Disease had already weakened the population, and many conquered peoples saw the Spanish as potential liberators from Inca rule. November 16, 1532, marked the beginning of the end. At Cajamarca, Atahualpa agreed to meet Pizarro with minimal guards, confident that 80,000 Inca warriors camped nearby guaranteed his safety. The Spanish had studied Cortez's conquest of the Aztecs and knew exactly what to do: capture the emperor, and the empire would follow. When Atahualpa rejected the Spanish demand to convert to Christianity and threw their Bible to the ground, Pizarro gave the signal. In less than an hour, Spanish cavalry and firearms had killed thousands of Incas and captured their god emperor. The ransom Atahualpa offered for his freedom became legend. A room 22 feet long, 17 feet wide, filled once with gold and twice with silver. The Incas delivered, melting down priceless artifacts, stripping temples bare, and transporting wealth from across the empire. The Spanish received roughly 13,120 pounds of gold and 26,000 pounds of silver, worth over $200 million today. But on July 26, 1533, they executed Atahualpa anyway, claiming he had plotted rebellion. With their divine emperor dead and their treasure looted, the Inca Empire's administrative structure collapsed like a house of cards. The Inca Empire's power rested on three revolutionary pillars that modern governments still struggle to achieve: total economic control, absolute information flow, and psychological dominance through religious authority. The Alu system formed the foundation: extended family groups that owned land collectively and provided labor through the Maita rotation. Every citizen owed the state a portion of their time, whether building roads, serving in the army, or working state farms. This wasn't taxation in coins or goods. It was taxation in human energy, creating a command economy that eliminated unemployment and famine while funding massive infrastructure projects. Communication was the empire's nervous system, and the chasqui relay runners were its neurons. These elite messengers could carry information 1,200 miles from Cusco to Quito in just 5 days, using a network of rest stations spaced exactly one running distance apart. They memorized messages using quipu, knotted string devices that encoded complex numerical and possibly linguistic data. This information superhighway allowed the Sapa Inca to govern an empire larger than the Roman Empire at its peak, making administrative decisions about distant provinces with remarkable speed and accuracy. But the empire's greatest strength was also its fatal weakness: absolute centralization around the divine emperor. The Sapa Inca wasn't just a political leader. He was literally considered the son of the sun god Inti, making rebellion not just treason, but cosmic blasphemy. Every major decision flowed through Cusco. Every law emanated from the royal palace. Every religious ceremony reinforced imperial authority. This system worked brilliantly when strong emperors ruled. But it meant that capturing or killing the Sapa Inca didn't just decapitate the government. It shattered the entire worldview that held 12 million people together. Here's what history books don't tell you. The Incas were performing successful brain surgery 500 years before European doctors figured out basic hygiene. Archaeological evidence shows that Inca surgeons achieved a 90% survival rate for trepanation, drilling holes in skulls to relieve pressure or remove bone fragments. They used coca leaves as anesthesia and bronze tools sharper than steel scalpels, techniques so advanced that Spanish conquistadors initially refused to believe indigenous people could possess such medical knowledge. Even more shocking is the empire's approach to conquered peoples. They didn't just defeat enemies, they erased their identities and rebuilt them as Incas. The Mitma system forcibly relocated entire populations, scattering potential rebels across the empire while moving loyal Inca colonists into newly conquered territories. Children of defeated nobles were taken to Cusco, educated in Inca ways, and returned as administrators of their home regions. Within a generation, the empire could transform fierce enemies into loyal subjects who genuinely believed they had always been Inca. It was cultural engineering on a scale that would make modern totalitarian regimes envious. The fall of the Inca Empire didn't just change South America. It rewrote the global economy and shifted the balance of world power for centuries. The silver extracted from Potosi alone funded Spanish dominance in Europe, financed wars against Protestant nations, and created the first truly global currency. Chinese merchants accepted Inca silver, European banks built fortunes on Andean gold, and the wealth of a mountain civilization became the foundation of Spain's Golden Age. The demographic catastrophe that followed, 90% population decline in some regions, created a labor shortage that drove the Atlantic slave trade, connecting African suffering to Andean tragedy in ways that still echo today. Modern Peru, Bolivia, and Ecuador exist because Inca administrative boundaries became colonial provinces, which became independent nations. The Quechua language, spoken by 10 million people today, survived because the Incas had spread it as a lingua franca across their empire. Even the concept of state-controlled economies and centralized planning, from Soviet communism to modern China, echoes Inca administrative principles. The empire's agricultural terraces still feed Andean communities. Their road networks became the foundation for modern highways, and their architectural techniques help buildings survive earthquakes that destroy modern structures. Stand today at Sacsayhuaman, where massive stone blocks fit together so perfectly that you can't slide a knife blade between them, and you're touching the hands of people who built an empire without iron, without wheels, without written language. yet created something that endures while the Spanish colonial buildings around it crumble. The Inca Empire fell not because it was weak, but because it was too perfect, too centralized, too dependent on the divine authority of one man. In the end, the same organizational genius that lifted a mountain tribe to continental dominance became the single point of failure that brought it all crashing down. The stones remain, silent witnesses to humanity's eternal truth, that our greatest strengths, taken to extremes, become our most devastating weaknesses.